Do you think of constructor theory as a law of physics or as a framework for explaining physics? Like, is it more general than just physics? Is it a paradigm in science rather than a theory of science? Is it a way of going about investigating?
I'd say it's both, in the sense that so it has some laws of its own that are formulated in the way that I said, so stating what transformations are possible and impossible. But also, because it's somehow phrased in this different way from the standard traditional dynamical law plus initial condition type of approach, is also a new paradigm. So it's not just as a physical theory with new laws in it. It also has the value of being a new framework or a new language to express laws of physics. So it has both components. But the most important one to me is, I think, well, they're both important, but somehow the one that intrigues me the most is the fact that it should ultimately allow us to say more than, if it pans out as we expect, more than what the current laws say. So it has a physical content of its own, which is non-trivial. Otherwise, it would be just a framework to rephrase things that we already know, which could also be interesting, but somehow perhaps is less interesting than, say, this bolder program that we are hoping will pan out in this way.
You hope to have as an emergent theory, quantum theory and general relativity?
Yes. So another aspect of constructor theory is that perhaps this is a supplement to the previous question you asked. So the way in which constructor theory works is that it doesn't pin down with its principles one specific dynamical theory. So we are hoping that, and I think we demonstrate this for quantum theory at least, and we're in the process of doing this for general relativity, that both quantum theory and general relativity are compatible with constructor theory's principles. So for instance, if you take the principles about information, we know they are compatible with quantum theory. And we also have arguments to say that they are compatible with general relativity. And in that sense, they're nice because even if you're maybe skeptical about the fact that these principles are really fundamental laws, so you can be agnostic about whether this is a better way to formulate the laws of physics, you can still find them useful because you can still find these principles of constructor theory very useful, because if they are things that are obeyed by both quantum theory and general relativity that we know don't go together as theories themselves, because general relativity is a classical theory, it doesn't have quantum effects in it, whereas quantum theory is quantum. You can appeal to these more general principles of constructor theories to provide explanations and make predictions in a context where both general relativity and quantum theory apply, but we don't know how to put the two theories together. But then we can appeal to these more general principles that do apply in that regime. And that's very much of interest for testing quantum gravity, because that's exactly the regime where we know that, maybe one of the quantum theories of gravity that have been proposed may apply, but we don't know which one is the right one. And so having these principles that are more general is very useful because you can appeal to them. And the fact that they work both for GR, for general relativity and quantum theory is a plus. So I'm thinking of quantum theory also as a bridge. These principles could be useful to guess a theory that goes beyond quantum theory and GR, as well as to help us find predictions or experiments that can test the realm where this theory is relevant. So this realm where, for example, testing quantum gravity effects is it's one of the applications of these principles of constructor theory, and that's the stuff I was mentioning earlier I've done with Vlatko.
So thinking of constructor theory as some high energy theory that in the low energy limit reproduces the standard model or GR is the wrong way of thinking about it.
Yes, I think that's that isn't
because that's the standard way of going about some theory of everything.
Yeah, that's actually a great thing you said there, because that's the standard way to go about this thing of finding quantum gravity theories, right? So you think, well, I've got these two things. I've got quantum theory, non-relativistic quantum theory, and then I have relativistic theories like either GR, general relativity, or special relativity. then let's find a way to put them together mathematically, right? That they kind of, and then there are proposals how to do that. We have quantum field theory. Then we have some quantum theories of gravity that can work in a low energy regime. Then there are those that actually work at higher energy, etc. And each of those will give you a prediction. Unfortunately, most of the predictions can be tested. For the quantum gravity predictions are very difficult to test. And then, so what you do is that you say, okay, well, let's just look at some regimes that are experimentally accessible. So that's the kind of logic that you have when you present those theories. And you're hoping that one of them you will find an experiment that corroborates one of those quantum theories of gravity and refutes effectively the classical theory of gravity, which is general relativity. So you would like ultimately some sign of the fact that gravity is quantum, so it doesn't obey general relativity after all, because general relativity is a classical theory. Now, in constructor theories, we are taking a different approach. We are considering the set of, if you like, symmetries or constraints that both quantum theory and general relativity satisfy together. So it's an exercise of saying, okay, I don't really look at the specific dynamical laws that these two theories have, but I'm trying to extract some deeper symmetry that they both agree on. For instance, the fact that both allow for things like observables.
Okay.
There is a concept of an observable both in quantum theory as well as in general relativity or in special relativity. And these observables obey certain laws of information theory. And in constructor theory, we can express those laws. And then by looking at this common area of let's say, agreement of the two theories, you can consider this deeper structure where the two theories agree, which requires you to forget about most of the formal details of the two theories. So you will be throwing away various aspects of both quantum theory and general relativity. There are specific formalisms. But you're looking at this deeper structure where they do agree. And for example, the information theoretic structure that concerns observables is something that the two theories agree on. So the fact that there are local observables, that you can measure some of these observables and so on, is something that the two theories agree on. Then, of course, general relativity is classical, quantum theory isn't, but I think there is a fundamental structure of observables that they share. They also share things like locality and other features of information theory that are in common. And you use these things, these common constraints, to make some prediction about these regimes where a quantum system is in interaction with gravity. And this actually is very powerful because it allows you to imagine experiments that are in the low energy regime, but they allow you to extract quantum features of gravity in a way that's easier than ways that somehow were proposed before to test specifically specific quantum theory of gravity. And this is very exciting because it tells us that quantum effects in gravity can actually are easier to capture than it was previously thought. And it's nice that these tests that I'm discussing as part of my work with Vlatko and other collaborators, these tests are really somehow probing a regime where we're not going to very high energies, so it's easier to actually access those regimes. And they rest on these general principles of information theory. They're very robust, and they are obeyed both by general relativity and by quantum theory. So that's maybe the way in which it's nice to think about constructor theory as being relevant to this problem that you mentioned.
If you enjoyed that clip, then the full podcast is out right now. You can click around here. Enjoy. Subscribe to Theories of Everything to get notified of upcoming podcasts, as there are new full-length podcasts every week on the topics of mathematics, physics, consciousness, free will, and AI.